Hey, good Thursday to all of you. Thanks for joining me as always. And I guess on this Thursday, we find out one thing, that the Red Sox ownership listens to this podcast. Yesterday, I was talking about Chaim Bloom and the fact that it was time to fire Chaim Bloom. If you're the Red Sox, get rid of him. Just rip off the Band-Aid, pull the trigger. The time is now. Don't wait. And what happens? Just a little while ago, we have the breaking news that Chaim Bloom has been indeed fired by the Red Sox. Goodbye, deuces, peace, see you later to Chaim Bloom. Now, a couple of things right off the bat about this that I like from Red Sox ownership, which is something I have not said a lot. Look, not a huge fan of John Henry. I'm with many of you. I've been disgusted with how this operation has been run, and it starts at the tippity top the last couple of years with ownership and Henry. But a couple of things that I think they got right here. Number one, firing Bloom. I think it's the right move. Number two, I like the fact that the Red Sox are doing it right now. They didn't wait. They didn't hesitate. They didn't wait until the season was over. They didn't let Chaim Bloom limp into October and then pull the trigger and make this happen. They did it right now. They're showing the urgency that they need to show given the current status of this organization, because it's not great. I'll get into that a little bit later. But I'm glad they made the move now. No hesitation. I'm surprised that there was no news dump. Think about it. The Red Sox could have easily waited until the Patriots played on Sunday night and then drop this news out there. I give them credit, and it's a low bar. Trust me, I'm with most of you. But I give them credit for not waiting for football Sunday to drop this news, not waiting for a Friday, not waiting for the weekend. Actually doing it right now and letting people know. And I think there's reason behind that. I think this ownership right now is trying, whether or not they're going to do it in execution, which I'll get to, but they're at least trying to send signals to this fan base that they're serious again. They're serious. They understand what's going on. And they are showing, as I said this word before, and I'll say it again, talking about this decision, they're showing the urgency that needs to be shown with this move. They're not waiting. They're not news dumping it. They're putting it on the front page and telling everybody, we're pulling the trigger. Chaim's gone. We're going to go get the guy. Now, here's the statement from the Red Sox, just an excerpt. This was from Henry. Quote, while parting ways is not taken lightly, today signals a new direction for our club. Our organization has significant expectations on the field, and while Chaim's efforts in revitalizing our baseball infrastructure have helped set the stage for the future, we will today begin a search for new leadership. Now, in addition to this change, Brian O'Halloran, who was GM, has been offered a new senior leadership position within the baseball operations department. And interestingly enough, O'Halloran was on EEI this morning with Greg Hill, and he said a couple of things that should have stood out to all of us. You know, he talked about making the big moves and understanding that the Red Sox had to make impact moves this offseason. He also really supported Alex Cora in that interview. And over the past few weeks, part of the conversation with Chaim Bloom has been Cora, because it doesn't seem like Cora was with the program with Chaim. And you were likely choosing between Bloom and Cora. And with this move, you clearly chose Cora. And earlier this morning, before the move was made official, before we knew about it, O'Halloran went out there publicly and really pumped the tires regarding Alex Cora. That should have given us an indication that this was going to be the move at some point down the road. The search for new baseball operations leadership will begin immediately, the Red Sox say in that statement. Sam Kennedy spoke with the media, and he said that the GM search will be vigorous and thorough. So just a couple of notes after the firing of Chaim Bloom. You had to do this. You had to make this move. We talked about it yesterday. I stressed yesterday, Bloom has to be fired. It's time to go. This team is staring at finishing in last place 3 of the last 4 years. And I know they made the ALCS in a nice story a couple of years ago. It was a fun run, but a lot of that team was not built by Bloom. Nice trade for Kyle Schwarber, but the heart of that team was brought in before Bloom came in. So your Bloom track record right now, it ain't great, folks. It ain't great. Last year, last place, and now fighting to get out of last place, tied with the Yankees going into today's doubleheader. So the record wasn't good. It just wasn't good enough. The product wasn't good enough. There's no energy around this team right now. There's no vibe. You know, you remember Bogarts and Benintendi and Bradley and Betts and all of those guys. They had an energy about them. They had a vibe about them. They were fun to watch. You could invest yourself into that product. This product, let's be honest, the last 2 years has royally sucked. And I'm not telling you there haven't been bright spots. Brian Bayo is a bright spot. Tristan Casas is absolutely a bright spot. Duran revitalized his career before he got hurt. Yoshida can hit. Not the best fielder, but Yoshida can hit. And he looks like a valuable piece moving forward. I'm not telling you all is lost. Obviously, Rafael Devers, who hasn't had as good of a year as we all would hope he'd have, but he's still hitting 30 dongs plus, and he's still young. So I'm not telling you that it's all completely wasted. I'm not. What I am telling you, though, is on balance, this product has sucked the last 2 years. It hasn't been fun. It hasn't been entertaining. It hasn't even really been interesting unless you're interested in watching a dumpster fire at times. Bad product, no energy, which led to frustrated fans. And I think that's why you have the move today. That's why this is not a news dump. That's why this is done on September 14th, and you're not waiting until the middle of October or right at the end of the season when things are done, then pulling the trigger. That's why it was done. Selling tickets for $1 to Yankees games this week. The bad product. That's why this was done, and that's why the timing was what it was. This is ownership, again, sending a clear message and signal to the fans that, hey, we get it. Do they? They'll have to prove it. Smacking them lips and gums is one thing. Don't talk about it, be about it. Is John Henry actually going to be about it? We'll see. Now, when I think about Chaim, a major problem, I think, to me, is that Chaim just wasn't a Boston kind of guy. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be a Boston type of guy or a New England type of guy. But New England is different. Boston is different. Trust me, I've been around this country. Lived in Virginia. I lived in California for, about a year and a half or so recently. Boston is different. Boston is certainly different than Tampa, where Bloom came from. And again, it doesn't mean that you can't be successful moving from Tampa to Boston, but you've got to be the right kind of guy, and you've got to do the job in the right way. And what I mean by that is the following, because again, here on the Nick Cato Show, as you listen and or watch us, we're always going to give you the context. We're always going to give you reasons and evidence and all of that stuff. So what do I mean by Boston type of guy, Boston type of woman, Boston type of manager, Boston type of GM? Here's what I think when I think about Boston GMs, the ones that have done the job the best in the past 15 to 20 years. I think about GMs that are aggressive, GMs that are going to go for it. Theo Epstein, going for it. Curt Schilling, that trade. We'll never forget that move. That's going for it. You have Pedro Martinez, great. Let's go out and get Curt Schilling. Let's go out and get 2 number ones because we can do it. Aggressive. Dave Dombrowski was aggressive. The Chris Sale trade, that's an aggressive move. Craig Kimbrell, aggressive move. Let's go to basketball. Is Brad Stevens aggressive? Hell yeah, he is. Some might say he's too aggressive. That guy's trading every single year. Every single offseason, he pulls off a big move. Kemba for Horford, big move, right? Then he trades for Malcolm Brogdon, big move. And we all know what he did this past offseason. So Stevens is aggressive. I mean, even freaking Sweeney with the Bees this last trade deadline was pretty aggressive and truly went for it. So that's what you like to see. You like to see that aggressiveness. I also think about passion. Theo, passionate. Remember the story about him slamming a chair and breaking it down like the Dominican Republic years and years and years ago? Guy was so pissed about swinging and missing that he smashed a chair and just lost it? Now, some markets would be like, oh my God, is he okay? Is Theo okay? Is he going to be all right? Should he be checked out? Is our GM okay? What do we do in New England when we heard that story? I don't know about you, but me, I was like, hell yeah. My GM gets pissed like I do. All right. My GM, Theo's not necessarily against maybe putting a fist in a wall every once in a while or slamming and breaking a chair. I can get down with a guy like that. I can hang with a guy like that on Friday night. I'm all in on this, Theo. That's how we took it. And maybe, I don't know Chaim Bloom personally, but he doesn't strike me as the guy who, when he swings and misses on Xander Bogaerts' contract negotiation, that he walks into his, spatial living area, and the first thing he does is grab a chair and smash it to pieces. He doesn't really come across as that guy. Belichick comes across as that guy. Theo was that guy. Stevens has a fire that's lit underneath him, even though people didn't like the lack of fire as a coach. But if you read at the time when he was a coach, Stevens absolutely had a fire. He just didn't show it publicly as much as fans wanted him to. So I think about passion. Stevens lives basketball. Theo's slamming chairs. I also think about, and I think this is the biggest drawback to Chaim Bloom, and this is what really sealed his fate here in Boston. You can be aggressive, but not necessarily gutsy, if that makes sense. And if you are going to be the shot caller in this market, you have to be more than willing to take gutsy chances, to make trades or moves, whether they're draft picks in football, that people go, what the hell is, what are they? What was he thinking? Or, man, that took a lot of guts. Theo was gutsy. Trading Nomar Garciaparra in 2004 was gutsy. We look back, remember, that was not a super popular move. He made it. It was a gutsy move, that Nomar trade. What did Stevens do this offseason? Gutsy move in trading Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart is still a fan favorite. Smart is beloved in Boston. He's beloved by Celtics fans. Stevens, when the Brogdon deal fell apart, did not hesitate to pivot and trade Marcus Smart for Kristaps Porzingis. That's guts. Dombrowski made a number of moves. Even Belichick has made a number of gutsy moves throughout his career. And draft picks. Some of them have backfired. So Bloom just wasn't the type of GM that usually works in this market. He also did not understand the market. He didn't grasp it. And I'll just use one word, and all of you know, I think, which word I'm going to use, that really highlighted the fact that Bloom never truly understood the team that he was running and the fan base that was invested in said team. Underdogs. Nuff said. You don't call a team from Boston underdogs in 2023. You've got the big money to spend. You've got the passionate fan base. You've got the media. You do not use that word. This is not Tampa. This isn't market 27 or 30 or 20. This is Boston. This has been the city of championships. You don't roll out there after having a suck-ass trade deadline, which we highlighted yesterday, and then come out and say, well, we're underdogs. We're going to scrap and claw. No. You have money spent on this payroll. We're not talking about a team that's, barely cracking $100 million on the payroll. That one moment after I thought that moment was even worse than the deadline. And I tweeted it at Nick C Radio. If you want to follow me, I tweeted it at the time. That was more damaging than the trade deadline itself, coming out and calling a Red Sox team damaging. Damaging, calling them underdogs. Just brutal. And what did Chaim Bloom do great? Before I move on to a few more takeaways, just one last thing on Bloom. What did he do great? Was he great in free agency? Hell no. Was he great trading? Mookie Betts. Absolutely not. Did he handle the luxury tax rules and all of that stuff in the right way? Absolutely. Without any hesitation, we can say that he screwed that up last year at the deadline. Royally screwed it up, which screwed up the compensation they got during the offseason. He's supposed to be the guy and be well understanding of all of the minutia and do all those small things and little things right and take every advantage. And he screwed up one of the most pinnacle things that you can't screw up when you're talking about trying to reestablish an organization. He screwed it up. The draft, we'll see. Tristan Cassis isn't his guy, right? Bayo isn't his guy. So we'll see if some of these guys do well. And let's not forget, I mean, he had some pretty high picks to do some damage. So he best have been right. I mean, Teal looks great, and some other guys look really, really good early on. But we mentioned this yesterday. Yes, Baseball America has the Red Sox ranked as the fifth best, market as far as minor league prospects go. They say they're the fifth best farm system. That's what I was looking for. Meanwhile, Bleacher Report, ESPN, MLB Pipeline, they have the Red Sox in the middle of the pack when it comes to farm system. So we'll see. 5 years from now, we might look back at this and say, hey, at least Chaim did something right. He nailed 5 or 6 draft picks. Maybe. All right, some other thoughts about this. Here on the Nick Cattle Show, Chaim Bloom getting fired earlier today. Do the Red Sox already have a guy? And that's why they pulled the trigger on this. That's why it was done. That's why the timing was what it was. Do they already know who they want to run this organization? And with that in mind, Buster Only tweeted this out right after the Bloom news. It'll be interesting to see if Alex Cora emerges as one of the candidates to run Boston's baseball operations. He has a broad range of experience, and others in the organization felt he increased his presence in the player development this year. Now, Buster Only is really good at what he does. And I don't think Buster Only is just going to throw crap against the wall. I don't think he's just tweeting this out just to tweet it out. I believe that Buster Only had to hear from somebody of influence within this franchise to tweet out Cora's name as a possible option to be the next guy to run the baseball operations. On top of that, Sam Kennedy would not rule out Cora when he spoke to the media today. The media asked him about the idea of Cora moving up, and Kennedy did not shoot that idea down. I think we have to look at Alex Cora as a possibility of running the baseball operations. I don't like it that much at all. I'd rather keep Cora as manager. I think he's a good manager. Talk about understanding the market. I think he understands the market. But I do wonder if Cora moves up, does that mean maybe Jason Varitek slides over? What do they do with the manager position? That's when you're making a big move like this. I don't like the idea of the two big moves, bing, bing, right? If you're making a big move like this and you already have a manager that has won in this market and is good at what he does, do you really want to risk that much turnover? Do you really want to get rid of the GM and then move on from Cora? And yes, Cora would be around the players and he'd have the conversations and all of that. But do you really want to move on from Cora and bring in an unknown, unless you're going to go out there and get Tito? Do you go out and get somebody like, Varitek and slide him over? We don't know if he'd work out as a manager. We have no idea. And the other thing I just brought up that's troublesome to me about this possible Cora to the front office theory or whatever it is, hypothetical. Cora as the former manager sliding up to be the GM, very similar, right? Pretty much the exact same thing that happened with Brad Stevens. And what the Celtics did was they found Ime Udoka, who was a very headstrong guy, ran his program. And it was different than Stevens. But you have to leave the door open to some problems communication-wise with the players. If you get off to a little bit of a slow start, or the manager doesn't necessarily manage like Alex Cora managed, and doesn't have the same style when talking to the players and all of that stuff, you do risk, and I'm not saying it's a huge risk, but the risk has to be talked about. You do risk players then going to Cora and complaining about it. And so now you have the GM kind of in the middle of the on-field product when it comes to how the players are talking and thinking and all of that stuff. Could get a little messy there. So I'm not in love with the idea. I'm not going to say I don't like it because that means that I'm just shutting it down. And I'm not going to shut it down. Cora might be great as a GM. I don't know. But I don't love the idea. I'd much rather have the Red Sox go out there and find somebody with a proven track record, if that exists. I'd have to run through the names. But go out there and find somebody with a proven track record and bring that person in, keep Cora where he is because you know that's worked before, and don't screw around with too much. This is the most important front office hire to me for this organization since Theo. And it ain't even close. This is the urgency, right? Like there is urgency around this baseball team that we haven't had in a number of years. The fans are now thirsty to become relevant. The fans are disenchanted by what's happened the last couple of years. The fans are frustrated. John Henry and ownership cannot get this wrong. If they get this hire wrong, you're talking about possibly this organization taking a step back for a number of years. If we go back to last year and you get this hire wrong and the next person screws up, you're talking about what, a 7-year window, 8-year window, 9-year window of, baseball that really fell off a cliff. This is an extremely important hire for John Henry and company. They cannot get this one wrong. And that's another reason why I think they'll lean towards experience, but maybe they lean towards the guy they know in Cora. If you're thinking about Theo, because I thought about Theo right away, you can just forget that unless Sam Kennedy is full of it or he's about to get fired, because Sam Kennedy came out speaking with the media today during that press conference and said that Theo will not be leading this organization. Now, is that because Theo told them thanks but no thanks and the conversation has already happened? I don't know. I hope so, because I would hope that they would at least have a conversation with Theo. They're saying this search is going to be thorough. If the search is going to be thorough, then you got to place a phone call to Theo, don't you? So maybe this is just Theo already telling them I'm not interested, and Kennedy putting out that fire. I do think, though, no matter what the reasoning is, I do think it's smart for the Red Sox and it's smart for Kennedy to come out today and shoot down the Theo rumors, shoot down the Theo idea. Because the last thing you want is for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, next month, the last thing that you want if you're the Red Sox is the Theo story to catch even more fire. And now fans are anticipating Theo being the guy. And now no matter who you hire, it's not going to be Theo. So if you put that down right now, kill it right now, the story's over. Theo can't be entertained. Theo's off the table. So it's smart for them to put out that fire today. One last thing before I get to some Patriots news and information and thoughts. John Henry better back up this statement. When you come out and you say what he has said, and you fire your GM, you fire your president of baseball ops and Chaim Bloom, and you have O'Halloran going out there on Greg Hill talking about they understand they have to make some big moves. They understand that they have to address pitching, et cetera, et cetera. If you're going to say this publicly, you best back it up. Again, don't talk about it, be about it. Red Sox fans, media, all of us, we couldn't care less what you say in a statement. It's what you do with your money. And will they back up this talk? Will they back up the statement? Are they going to be willing to spend at the top of the market? Are we talking about Yamamoto as a possibility? Will they go out there and be aggressive to bring him in, 25-year-old stud pitcher? Do you go after Yamamoto? Do you go after Shohei Ohtani? Do you go after the huge names that will truly make an impact on the long term of this ball club and its success? You can tell me everything you want to tell me, but you better do it. All right, rate, review, like, and subscribe. Don't forget, we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts. I want to thank everybody listening to the show today. We had our best day yesterday, especially on YouTube. All of you are killing it on the comments. You're killing it on the likes, which is huge. I can't say it enough. More likes means more eyeballs. That's how this works. We got to build up this community, and that's what we're starting to do already. 3 pods down. This is the 4th pod. Back tomorrow as well with the 5th to finish out this week. But I appreciate every single one of you. Let's keep the momentum going. Couple of things about the Patriots that I wanted to cover today. And this one's going to be a long podcast, but hey, there's a lot to talk about. And I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about, especially the breaking news with Chaim. We are getting closer and closer to having a JuJu problem. We are getting closer and closer to having a JuJu Smith-Schuster issue here. Some might say we already have a problem. We already have an issue. Andrew Callahan, who does great work at the Boston Herald, wrote about JuJu today. And here's some of what Callahan had to say. Number one, team sources, according to Callahan, don't presently see JuJu as a number 1, number 2, or number 3 option for this team at receiver, as a pass catcher, quote unquote. Callahan wrote that JuJu is not viewed as a top 5 pass catcher. So who are we talking about? We talking about, my guess, Devontae Parker, Kendrick Bourne, Hunter Henry, Pop Douglas, and one of Gesicki or Booty. So right now, the Patriots coaching staff, according to this report from Callahan, they have those 5 or 6 guys ahead of JuJu Smith-Schuster as far as pass catchers that they can rely on and believe in. The other part of this story from Callahan is the fact that, quote, his knee flatly is not 100%. And of course, Burt Breer came out a couple weeks ago, and said that, JuJu's knee could explode at any point. Burt kind of laughs at that now. He might have been a little hyperbolic with the explode at any point. Look, it's live, right? I'm sitting here, pop a microphone on, just talk. It happens. I've said words that I regret. Live microphones, those things tend to happen at times. But Burt's report was pretty much, look, this guy's knee isn't great. And Callahan backs that up today. So none of it good in the Herald today for JuJu. Then you have the 4th and 3 route on Sunday that we talked about. JuJu, if he didn't run the wrong route, he didn't run the route well enough. He did not help Mac. He actually hung Mac Jones out to dry on that 4th and 3 by not running the route well or not running the correct route. It had to do with leverage and the cornerback and all that stuff. So he didn't run the 4th and 3 correctly. And as we know, he was then sat down in the 2-minute package. He was not seen late in the game. None of this is good so far. None of it is good so far for JuJu Smith-Schuster as a Patriot. And I wish it was different, because I think when JuJu was healthy, he's a really good football player. A healthy JuJu Smith-Schuster is a guy that can help this football team. And that's all I care about. Can the guy help the football team? And JuJu is somebody that could absolutely help this football team. Now, with all of the background information and context I just gave you about Smith-Schuster, and again, thanks to Andrew Callahan with the work, the fine work he does in the Boston Herald. But now that we have that information, a couple of things that I was thinking about here. Number one, the Jacoby Myers-Smith-Schuster decision could end up being straight up malpractice by Bill Belichick. Unless JuJu's knee gets better, unless JuJu finally gets it. And look, it's only week 2, right? I mean, we've only played 1 week so far in the NFL season. There's plenty of time for JuJu to figure this thing out. But unless JuJu figures it out, or unless he gets healthier, if we're talking about a Smith-Schuster whose knee is bad enough that in week 1 you have to manage it, and you're already talking to the media about how his knee isn't great, then that Myers and JuJu move is malpractice. All you had to do was keep Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers wasn't paid a ton of money. Now, did I like the Smith-Schuster move? Yes. Do I think Smith-Schuster is better than Jacoby Myers? Yes. But there's a big caveat to that. Smith-Schuster is better than Myers if he's healthy. If he's healthy. Because the one thing that Smith-Schuster is better at than Myers is yak. He has more explosivity. And if he's not explosive enough, and he didn't look very explosive on Sunday, if that knee has compromised his ability to be explosive on the football field, then this is malpractice by Belichick because you needed to do some homework. There have been reports out there that other teams were concerned or even scared off by JuJu's knee. And for Belichick to replace Jacoby Myers with somebody who could end up being damaged goods, major screw up by Belichick. Major screw up. You had to know about his knee. And by the way, if you didn't know about JuJu's knee, that's an even bigger issue. Why did you not know about his knee? Why did other teams know about his knee and know about some other issues that could be problemsome for JuJu in his new team? So why did other teams know and you didn't know? That could be a problem. The second thing I thought about, I hate to do it, but I got to do it. Second thing I thought about, how in the hell do you not sign DeAndre Hopkins with what's going on with JuJu? Now, some might say, oh, Nick, this is revisionist. No, it's not. Number one, I wanted Hopkins on this team at the time. I said it was a major fumble by Belichick to not at least bring Hopkins in as a part of this roster. And a huge part of the reason was Devontae Parker's injury history, JuJu's injury history. I've talked about margin of error a lot with this team. There's reason for that. And I thought Hopkins would help you in that category. So the idea that you replaced Myers with JuJu, and then when you're talking, let's not forget, you're talking to Hopkins after mandatory minicamp, after JuJu has been in the facility, and you still didn't bring Hopkins in for what was a very, very reasonable deal. You had to know that something could go wrong, or you had to know that there already was something wrong. JuJu said he had a knee operation, and it swelled up when he was traveling to Japan. I would hope that he shared that information with the Patriots as far as the traveling part. Patriots had to know he had surgery in the offseason. They had to know the history of this guy. And the fact that you're going in with Parker's injury history and even more of an injury history than we knew regarding JuJu, and you still didn't pull the trigger on Hopkins, that to me is a huge mistake by Belichick. It really is. And the most frustrating part, by the way, is the fact that you have Mac Jones on his rookie contract. If there's any time in football, as a GM, president of football operations, whatever the hell your title is, if there's any time in football to go out and make a couple of big splashes offensively, it's when you have a rookie quarterback or when you have a quarterback on their rookie deal, because you're going to eventually have to pay a quarterback 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, $50 million, depending on who you're talking about. You're going to have to pay that quarterback a truckload, a boatload of money. This is the time when you can spend $20 million on a receiver per season because Mac's not making $30 million a year. And Belichick has decided not to do that. And it might not hurt them. They might win 10, 11 games this year. We look back and say, hey, okay, I still think, though, if you're a 10-win team, if you spent money on top-tier talent, are you a 12-win team? Do you go from playoff contender to actual title contender if you bring in a couple of those big names? And I'm not talking about even spending a ton of money. They had a chance to add DeAndre Hopkins this offseason, and they decided not to when they had plenty of money. We're going to look back at the first 3 years of Mac's career when it comes to how to surround this guy with talent, when it comes to the coaching staff, coordinator positions, and all of that, I don't think it's even a debate that Belichick has done this quarterback and this team a major disservice by not spending more money at the wide receiver position or drafting a top-notch wide receiver. And now some might say, well, Nick, they spent the money on JuJu Smith. That was going back a number of years ago. That was the post-Brady splurge. And the other issue is, some might say, oh, Tyquan Thornton, second-round pick. I'm talking about can't-miss kind of guys. Look at all the best quarterbacks, all the best young quarterbacks in the league. A common denominator is them having a legit number one surefire receiver. Tua wasn't lighting the world on fire until the Dolphins went out and got Tyreek Hill and drafted Jalen Waddle. Herbert has a plethora of weapons. Joe Burrow has Jamar Chase and Higgins and Boyd. Josh Allen played better as soon as they brought in Stephon Diggs. That's not a coincidence. The other issue, of course, is that Belichick, he hasn't done a good job of evaluating talent. And so when they've decided to spend big money on talent or spend more money than they usually do on talent, they miss. They missed on JuJu Smith. They missed on N'Keal Harry. So far, they've missed on Tyquan Thornton. And that all leads you to this. Those decisions, not spending money on a Hopkins, not spending money on a receiver that might be even better than Hopkins, getting your evaluations wrong in free agency and in the draft when it comes to pass catchers. All of those things come back to haunt you. And all of those things make you go out and bring in Devontae Parkers of the world and JuJu Smith-Schusters of the world. I'm high on Kendrick Bourne to a point. So it's just frustrating when you have a rookie, quarterback or a quarterback on their rookie contract and the team is not spending money the way they should be on that side of the ball to help that young quarterback. But not all is lost. Look, they can survive. They can survive without JuJu. They can win football games without Smith-Schuster. I honestly believe that they can win football games without JuJu. But you need a few things. For you to survive without JuJu, for you to win football games without JuJu, for you to make the playoffs without JuJu, or say a 50% JuJu, whatever the hell's going on, you need Pop Douglas to play really well. You need that guy to produce when he's in the game. You need Kayshon Boutte to improve and make sure he keeps both feet in bounds. And you need your other wide receivers to stay healthy. You need Kendrick Bourne to stay healthy. You need Parker to stay healthy. You need Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki to stay healthy. You even need the running backs and Stevenson and Zeke to stay healthy with their ability to catch the football. And you need that offensive line to stay healthy, which we'll get into in a couple of minutes. Again, margin of error. They have to hope a lot of things go well for them to be a 10-win team, 11-win team. And JuJu Smith-Schuster being banged up doesn't help that margin. They need the run game to be really good. Now, silver lining, Philadelphia Eagles, they have a pretty damn good cornerback duo, and I think that's been overlooked a little bit when we talked about that game. Slay and Bradbury are good. And, Pop showed some promise last week. Bourne was good last week for the most part. Henry was good last week. You got Mike Gesicki involved in the second half. Boutte, again, he's going to work on the little things, obviously. But against some of the better cornerbacks in football last week, you did show some promise, especially Bourne. So that's good. Hopefully, Devontae Parker will be healthy enough to get out there this weekend. Hopefully, we see him on Sunday night. Patriots practicing right now as I record this. Not so great news. Kayshon Boutte limited yesterday with a hamstring. Is that going to be a problem? Is he going to be unavailable? I mean, imagine if Parker and Boutte are unavailable on Sunday night. Now you're asking Bourne to be your number one. You're asking Douglas to be what? Your number two? You have to get Gesicki involved. Will Demario Douglas, if Boutte is healthy, if Parker is out there, how many snaps will Douglas get? Because I think he needs snaps. I think he got 33 last weekend. I think he needs more than that. So we'll have to wait and see. All right, one more thing I want to get to, but before I do, don't forget, rate, review, like, subscribe to this podcast. Watch it on YouTube. We've got the comment section for you as well. Don't forget to give us those likes. Every like helps us. We're building the community out. I appreciate every single one of you that are watching and or listening to this. I can't say enough about you. So one-man band, as I keep saying. All right, final thing here. I'm concerned about the offensive line, and I quite frankly would not be able to comprehend or understand anybody that would not be concerned by what's going on right now with this offensive line. I'm not panicking just yet because it's only going into week 2. But there are some ginormous problems here. In the offensive line, when we get more into the game on Sunday night on tomorrow's podcast, unless there's just more breaking news, the offensive line could be the difference on Sunday night between a win and a loss. Everybody's looking back at that Eagles game and they're saying, oh man, the offensive line played good. Not really. Not really. Now, they were better than we anticipated, but the bar was so low. The bar was so low for that offensive line on Sunday, and it should have been without Owenu, without Strange, with all the issues they've had. But the bar was so low that because people didn't see Mac Jones get murdered on national television, they walked away and said, offensive line was pretty good. Adrian Clem coached him up. Wild misconception. Why? And I'll tell you why. Michael Hurley wrote about this at CBS. Michael Hurley, by the way, I do believe is my spirit animal in Boston Sports Talk. We agree on a lot. Here was Hurley on the offensive line. Antonio Mafi, his grade from Pro Football Focus was a 38.5. That ranked him 61st out of 65 guards. Sidy Sow was even worse. Sidy Sow's grade was 28.8, ranked 64 out of 65 guards in the NFL in week 1. Calvin Anderson was moderately better at right tackle. He had a 56.7 grade. He was 49th out of 65 tackles in the NFL in week 1. Trent Brown was average. He was the 24th best tackle in the league, according to PFF's grade. David Andrews was the bright spot. He was good. But the overall offensive line picture, as Hurley wrote, was a mess. And I still keep hearing this echo chamber this week going, oh, well, the O-line was good. The O-line was good. It's similar to the whole Mac Jones echo chamber about, oh, he didn't make any plays in the fourth quarter without talking about Kendrick Bourne dropping the football and Booty not getting his feet in and JuJu running a terrible route on 4th and 3, which killed that play, holding penalties, which set him back out of field goal range, the coaching decision to not kick the field goal. We forget about all of those details. The fact is, the line wasn't that good against the Eagles. It really wasn't. What was good was Bill O'Brien's game plan. What was good was Mac Jones' ability to get rid of the football quickly. What was good and has been criminally overlooked this week was Mac's ability to move within the pocket to get away from some of that pressure and create plays. Nobody's talking about that. Go back and watch that game and chart how many times Mac Jones had to slide out of the pocket. He had to go east. He had to go west. He had to go north. He had to go south. How many times did he have to move within that pocket to create space and time to make a play? A lot of times. So again, Mafi was 61st out of 65 guards. So was 64 out of 65. Calvin Anderson was 49 out of 65 tackles. The line wasn't good. The Eagles had 2 sacks, 7 hits. Mac Jones against the Eagles was hurried 21 times. Now, let me put that in perspective. Again, thanks to Hurley, Michael Hurley at CBS. Mac Jones was hurried 7 more times than any other quarterback in week 1. So if you hear a talk show host or you hear somebody on one of these TV shows or you read something telling you that the offensive line was good, challenge that. The offensive line wasn't good. And that's the backdrop. Because, again, we're recording this right now. But as of what we knew yesterday and what we're probably going to know today is that Sidy Sow and Trent Brown are both now concussed. In the NFL in 2023, very unlikely that either of those guys in concussion protocol would be out of the protocol and would be ready to play on Sunday night. So I think you have to pretty much be ready for no so, and no Brown. So those two guys very likely to be out. Your left tackle and your starting right guard last week out. Owenu and Strange were still limited until they're on the field, until they're activated. You have to treat them as both being out because they missed week 1. Starting left guard, starting right guard now out. So you're starting left tackle, you're starting left guard, you're starting right guard, all out or likely to be out, if not very likely to be out. Your backup right guard is out. Your best offensive lineman from week 1, David Andrews, has a hamstring issue. Now, I'm going to believe that Andrews might be a little more towards managing him on a Wednesday than him being so limited that he won't play on Sunday. But God forbid you don't have David Andrews. Starting left tackle, starting left guard, starting center, starting right guard would all then be out. And your starting right tackle, which was supposed to be a battle between Anderson and Riley Reif, of course, Reif's out for the first 4 weeks. So you might have to move Anderson to the left side. I mean, your offensive line on Sunday night might realistically be Calvin Anderson on the left side at left tackle, Mafi at left guard, James Andrews, rookie, as your starting center, Vidarian Lowe, who you traded for after the 3rd preseason game from Minnesota, could be your right guard, and Tyrone Wheatley Jr., who's never played an NFL game before, could be your starting right tackle. That is a bleep show. And if that is your offensive line, I swear to God, if anybody complains about Mac Jones on Monday, I am going to lose my ever-loving mind. If you have a line of Anderson, Mafi, Jake Andrews, Lowe, and Wheatley Jr. on Sunday night, how many quarterbacks, how many running backs, how many offenses, how many offensive coordinators could survive that? Brutal. How about La'el Collins? He's available. Released yesterday off the PUP. Well, Mark Daniels says that the level of interest is considered due diligence. You might want to do some more due diligence there and actually bring him in. By the way, how did Sidney So and Trent Brown play 100% of the snaps, but they're in concussion protocol? Did both concussions happen on the very final play of the game? That would be a mighty coincidence. I think we all, if you believe in the higher power or you believe in football gods, whatever you believe in, if you believe in it, you better pray to it that Owenu or Strange or both guys are back on Sunday. Because if we're dealing with that kind of an offensive line, man, oh man, run game productivity is going to be almost nil. Very tough to run the football with that O-line. And if it looks like Sunday again, tough to win, as we found out. Tough to win. And it's going to impact Mac. Let's be realistic. This will impact Mac Jones. If all of those guys are out in front of Mac, it's going to impact him. You're talking pressure. You're talking hits. You're talking probably, again, one-dimensional offense. You're talking about likely having to bail from the play-action game because you don't trust the offensive line to block long enough and have Mac turn his back to the defensive line in the pass rush. So not great. Rate, review, like, and subscribe. Hopefully you find this show to be great. The Nick Catto Show. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. We, of course, are on YouTube as well. Every like counts. Every good rating counts. Bad ratings count too, but hopefully you give me a good rating. All the reviews count. All that stuff means so much for the launch of this show. So if you like or love what you're listening to or you're watching, please rate, review, like, and subscribe. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. All right, tomorrow, again, unless there's a ton of breaking news, tomorrow is going to be 100% devoted to previewing Dolphins and Patriots on Sunday night. We'll talk to you tomorrow. It's the Nick Catto Show.